This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4?
Celtics.
Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, DRG. Let's go. What do you think for tonight? You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I'm your host, Seamus. Yes, we are going solo showing tonight as the Boston Celtics defeat the Houston Rockets 109-86 down in Houston, Texas on the second night of a back-to-back after the Celtics defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves last night in Minnesota up in Minneapolis. And first of all, folks, happy 2025. You gotta love the intro video there, the new intro video for 2025. Really sets the tone for this post-game show. And really the Celtics tonight set the tone as well because, my goodness, the Boston Celtics, as of late, we were talking, the consistency with this team. What is going on with the consistency of the Boston Celtics? You think all the way back to the Washington Wizards game in the middle of December, and we were really talking about the December struggles here with the Boston Celtics. The Wizards game, the Celtics come out a little lackadaisical. We call it a nothing game, but yet they win by 14 points, yet it's not that great of a performance, but as a precursor to what was to come over the next 6 games for the Boston Celtics, which was a loss to the Chicago Bulls, a blowout win against the Chicago Bulls, then a loss to the Orlando Magic, another loss to the Philadelphia 76ers on Christmas Day, then a great game against the Indiana Pacers to rebound from all of those horrible losses for the Celtics in late December. And then what do? Another terrible loss against the Indiana Pacers, in which just had our heads spinning here on postgame, and we had no idea how to talk about this Celtics team about a week ago from tonight. Yet after these last 3 games, 54-point win against the Toronto Raptors on New Year's Eve, second largest win in franchise history for the Boston Celtics. Then, of course, last night in Minnesota, the Celtics pull out a very tough 3-point win in Minnesota. The margins were very slim for the Celtics in that game, yet they pulled through, controlled for most of the game, pulled out a great win in Minnesota, one that we absolutely needed to see to start the year of 2025. And then the Celtics go down to Houston, Texas tonight on the second night of a back-to-back, play the Houston Rockets, and come out with a dominant 109-86 win. The Boston Celtics, it seems like right now in January, there's still a lot, I will say this, there's still a lot of road to be paved here in front of us for the Boston Celtics, but at the same time, it seems as if the Celtics are making a statement right now in their play and are starting to really turn that corner in which we expect them to turn, to regain that consistency in which we all know and love from the Boston Celtics. Now, big games still on the horizon for the Celtics. You think about the OKC game coming up. OKC now on a 14-game winning streak going into that game. We all know the Boston Celtics love to be breaking winning streaks, as they did earlier this season against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Broke the Cavaliers' early season win streak, where the Cavaliers, I believe they started out 15-0 for the season. Everybody was talking about, maybe the Cavaliers, can they challenge the Warriors' record of starting out the season 24-0? Well, the Boston Celtics had something to say about that. And then, of course, after the Oklahoma City game, the Denver Nuggets in Denver against Nikola Jokic. So still 2 very big games on the horizon for the Boston Celtics for the Celtics to go out and prove their consistency once again. But right now, the trajectory looks like it's going up quite a bit. And what also looked like it was going up quite a bit was the lead tracker tonight for the Celtics. Oh my goodness, this is really what we want to see out of the Boston Celtics. A 28-point lead. And hey, just shout out to the Patriots here. 28-3, their biggest lead for the Rockets. 3, the biggest lead for the Celtics. 28 in this game, and it peaked late in the fourth quarter. That's what we want to see. This is the exact lead tracker we want to see. Yeah, we could have maybe had a better start there, maybe grabbed a lead early on, but really in the early portion of a game, it's going back and forth. You see a little bit of red there, not quite a wire to wire win, only 5 lead changes in this game, 3 times tied, of course. And from there on out, the Celtics really controlled this game. You see a couple of ebbs and flows in there, but that's really the game of basketball. For the most part, though, you really see a constant trajectory forward for the Boston Celtics. And this is the lead tracker in which we want to see out of the Celtics. We want to see that constant trajectory upwards and that upward trend on the graph, because in that fourth quarter, the Celtics peaked. They started out the fourth quarter on an 11-0 run, and really after that run, the Houston Rockets, they were completely demoralized in this game, missing a couple of players. Of course, we'll get into that in a second, but this kind of lead tracker is really what you want to see out of the Celtics, because this means the Celtics are not becoming complacent within their play as the game goes on, and they're only hitting the throttle and pushing it forward. We've seen in the past the Celtics, there have been a couple of lead trackers where they either don't control the game at all, or you can see the ebbs and flows to the point where they're digging themselves holes, they come back out of it, they dig themselves another hole, or they establish a lead late, or I should say not late, but early in a game, and then later in a game, they just can't quite hold on to it. So this type of lead tracker is really the ideal chart we want to see out of the Boston Celtics when it comes to playing and putting up statistics, specifically from a score perspective. We always like to look at the lead tracker here because it really does tell the story of the game. And the Celtics, you can clearly see that upward trend in the lead tracker tonight for Boston. So great job by the Celtics in not allowing their foot to be off the gas pedal in this game at all, not taking their foot off the gas pedal. The Celtics did not do in this game, and really just pushed the throttle forward for most of the night. Now, there are some things to be said about this game in terms of who was out there and who was not out there. Now, Jaylen Brown, he did not play tonight yet again. Jaylen Brown missed the last 2 games now, both in Minnesota and Houston, with what seems to be maybe a shoulder injury. We don't know if it's precautionary, if there's something there, but we'll have to see moving forward. 2 big games again on the horizon for the Boston Celtics. Oklahoma City and Denver coming up, so maybe the Celtics are preserving him for that moment, and this is more precautionary, but we'll have to see. Now, for the Houston Rockets, I do want to touch on the Rockets. Oh, I should mention for the Celtics too, Al Horford didn't play on the second night of back-to-back. Not abnormal, probably not an injury, or I should say definitely not an injury. Al Horford typically sits one of the 2 back-to-back nights, so he played last night, and of course Al Horford was out tonight, so I must mention that for the Boston Celtics. But on the other end, for the Houston Rockets, I do want to talk about the Rockets here for a second, because I want to take this game with a grain of salt for the Celtics. Now, you can't take away anything from the Celtics in this game. You just can't, because quite frankly, you play who you play. The Celtics, this is a tough situation. Second night of a back-to-back on the road in Texas. They fly all the way down from Minneapolis down to Houston, and this is a West Coast road trip in which the Celtics, they're on right now, and you can't take anything away from the Celtics for this game. But I will say this game did not include 3 of the Rockets' best defenders, or really 2 of the Rockets' best defenders, and 3 of the Rockets', I don't want to say best players, but they're certainly in the upper echelon of the Rockets' best players. So Jabari Smith Jr., of course, their young forward who was picked number 3 in the draft just a couple of years ago for the Houston Rockets, broke his hand in shoot-around earlier today, and the word is he'll require surgery, and that's a really odd situation, because typically when a player goes out for a long period of time, you don't expect those injuries to come out of shoot-around. This wasn't even practiced, to my knowledge. Teams don't really practice that much in the regular season, so whatever happened in shoot-around to Jabari Smith, Very unfortunate. He did not play in this game, and he will not play for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, for the Houston Rockets. But aside from Jabari Smith Jr., Amin Thompson was suspended for this game, and Tari Eason also missed this game. And what's really been the conversation with the Houston Rockets earlier this season, or really early in this portion of the season, it's been Amin Thompson and Tari Eason getting after it defensively. They're just hound dogs as two wings and two forwards defensively. And it really gives people confidence in this Rockets team that this Rockets team can actually go somewhere this year, maybe win a playoff series, maybe build more for the future and become a future contender if the timing is right with this Rockets team. And of course, if they can maybe swing a trade with a couple of their pieces on the roster. You never know on the horizon what the Rockets are going to be able to do right now. They're 22-12 on the season. Certainly very impressive from where the Rockets were 2 seasons ago, down near the bottom of the standings. Last year they made that uptick, that kind of not exactly that breakout year, but you could see within their record they went over their win total and kind of proved that they were coming up in the standings rather than sitting down there in the lower tier of lottery teams. And this year, the Celtics, or I should say the Rockets, they are third in the Western Conference right now. They're battling for that second, third seed. They're straddling right there, second or third any given night. It could be the Rockets. But right now, no Amin Thompson tonight, no Tari Eason. The Celtics really did not see the Rockets' two best defenders and the two young forwards, in which makes everybody think this Rockets team could defend something big in the future, because everybody, you look around the NBA, what does every team need? They need wings who defend. And that's what makes the Boston Celtics so dangerous. We talked about the Celtics have two of the best wing players in the NBA, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And there's no debate about it. And that's what makes the Celtics, aside from all the other pieces on the roster, so great. And Houston Rockets, I'm not saying those guys are Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but when you have two special defensive players like that, Amin Thompson and Tari Eason, specifically wing players, that's when you know a team, you better watch out for them. And the Rockets, that's why, aside from their coaching, other players too, Jalen Green turning it up to another level this year. His shooting percentage, they mentioned it on the Celtics broadcast, still not that great. Alperen Şengün wasn't amazing tonight, but he has been phenomenal throughout this season. So aside from some of those other pieces for the Rockets, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith, they didn't play tonight. It really felt like it affected the Rockets' ability to defend the Celtics at times in this game. Really affected the Celtics' ability to defend. It felt like the Celtics were meeting no physicality. It felt like the Celtics were being the physical enforcers on the second night of a back-to-back. And that's what you love to see as a Celtics fan, what Celtics Nation loves to see, because teams typically they fall into the fold a little bit on the second night of a back-to-back, especially after, was it an emotional win in Minnesota last night? Would you go as far to say an emotional win? It was a back and forth game. Celtics controlled the game for most of the game, but Minnesota did make their comebacks, did make it close in the fourth quarter. And it wasn't easy for the Celtics to pull out on the road against a tough physical team in Minnesota. So, of course, last night, you would go as far to say that was an emotional, physical, hard-fought win for the Boston Celtics on the first night of a back-to-back in a game that you really felt like the Celtics needed after this recent stretch. Like, yeah, okay, we beat the Raptors by 54 on New Year's Eve. Great. We all expected to win that game. The Celtics had to blow through the Raptors in order to get to their next game. But that Minnesota game, everybody was looking ahead to. And the Celtics, they come out with a big win. And typically in those spots in the NBA, some teams, they like to roll over the next night if they have a flight. Of course, they're getting in. The Celtics, I believe the news was they got in at 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's still, game is later in the night. It was at 7 p.m. So there's still a lot of time to rest and recover and get ready. But regardless, it was the second night of a back-to-back, yet the Celtics, they seemed like the more physical team. They were the enforcers in this game. And on both ends, you see 86 points allowed for the Houston Rockets tonight. So you see the Celtics were getting after it defensively in this game, and also offensively, 109. That's not the most audacious score, but offensively, early on, the Celtics were 7 of 12 in the first quarter from three, 16 points in the paint to start this game. And Scal mentioned it on the broadcast, really just a perfect start on offense for the Boston Celtics in this game. And it felt like throughout the game, the Boston Celtics could just get whatever they wanted on offense in this game, and it really honed in on the Celtics' ability to get downhill and get into the paint and open up shooters on the perimeter. And also, we saw Luke Cornett in that dunker spot. We'll get to it. We have film breakdown. Anytime we do solo here, we're going to do film breakdown. So we're going to have that later on in the show, and we'll really hone in on the Celtics offense, specifically early in this game, and then really putting an emphasis on driving to the paint. Just felt like Houston, they didn't have the bodies to match up with the Boston Celtics at all tonight, and you could really see it within Houston's defense and Boston's offense, and really just how easy it looked for Boston tonight. Because throughout the season, we've seen the Celtics, they become complacent on offense. They've been really just jacking threes off of one pass. They've really just not been using most of the shot clock. They've been really trigger happy for most of this season and not methodically working through their offense. A lot of hero ball out of the Celtics, and we've not been used to that from this Boston Celtics team at all because, quite frankly, last year this was a cohesive unit in which worked together on the floor. And the Boston Celtics come in this year as the same exact team, yet that cohesion, it looks a little sporadic all over the place. It's your turn, it's my turn. The team is not working as unselfishly as they did. Now, they're still one of the more unselfish teams in the league, still like to pass the ball, but at the same time, from what we saw last season to what we've seen this season, it's been few and far between to start the season. Yet tonight, you saw more of that cohesion within the Celtics offense, and really the last 3 games, I would say. And it really starts with the Celtics getting downhill, getting into their offense, attacking the paint, making every single defender look at the paint, and of course, from that, distributing out to the perimeter or finishing down low. You're getting, anytime you're attacking the paint, you are just, you are wreaking havoc to the defense. And that is really when a game plan can play out because you're getting efficient shots both at the rim. You think about the 2 most efficient shots in basketball, all right? At the rim, it's just obvious you're 2 feet away, and it's the corner three because the corner three, when everybody collapses, that's the shot that's most open. And then after that, it's the wing three and the straightaway three. That's off of points per possession. That's why those are the most efficient shots in the NBA. So when you're collapsing the defense, when you're drawing that help, when you're drawing multiple eyes to driving towards the paint, either that help has to help on the perimeter to take away those threes. From that, it's 1-on-1 to the paint. You have a 2-foot jumper, you have a 2-foot floater, you have a hard layup at the rim if you're Jason Tatum, whoever you are, Derek White, Jaylen Brown didn't play tonight, but Jaylen Brown as well. But then if you drive in and you draw all that help to the paint, well, what do you have? Boom, kick out, wide open corner three. Boom, kick out, wide open corner three. Or, oh, we're going to swing it over to the wing. We're going to swing it over to the top of the key and get a wide open three from there. And that's what the Celtics really need now in their offense, and what we've really seen out of the Celtics offense the last 3 games, opposed to the first, what, we're on game 35, so the first 32 games of the season. It was few and far between for the Boston Celtics in that regard because it really felt like the Celtics were just jacking up any three that they could get their hands on. It just felt like when a player touched the ball, whether it was Sam Hauser, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jason Tatum, of course, some of them have been very consistent at shooting that shot, that outside shot this season, but it just feels like for a lot of the season, the offense has revolved around, oh, I have the ball in my hand. I must shoot it. I have the ball in my hands. I gotta shoot it right now. And that's just not what the Celtics need at all. They want to generate those wide open quality threes. We've been talking about the 3-point shot for the Boston Celtics on the show quite frequently. And part of the conversation is we all agree with the volume of shots the Celtics are taking. We agree with the volume, okay? We don't have any rift with the Boston Celtics taking 53s, 55 threes, even 63s on some nights. But on a lot of those occasions, the Celtics are just settling, and they have been settling, I should say. We want to see that volume, okay? We want to see that volume, but the shot selection is really what matters. And that's what we've been honing in on this post-game show as of late, that the Celtics, they need to methodically work their way into the offense. They need to drive the paint. They need to attack, and they need to open up more of those quality shots from the perimeter because there have been times this season in which we just haven't seen it from the Boston Celtics. A lot of the threes, yes, we're taking a high volume of threes, but a lot of them are low quality shots, and that's just not what we want to see. That is not going to be efficient at all for the Boston Celtics. That's when they're hitting at a low clip. That's when also they allow their offense to affect their defense on the other end of the floor as well. Yet tonight, it was really just, I don't want to say a perfect performance because there's really no such thing in the NBA, but it really felt like the Boston Celtics on both ends of the floor responded from the recent stretch and were just doing all the little things on both ends, being physical defensively, and of course, allowing that play to then trickle down offensively and just kind of bouncing it back and forth from each other. It felt like the Boston Celtics were always in rhythm tonight. And that's what we really want to see out of this Boston Celtics team. And a player who contributed heavily to that rhythm for the Boston Celtics and has turned the corner as of late, just as the team, is our Seat Geek player of the game, Mr. Derek White, as you see him on the top of the screen, and now you see him on the screen. Derek White. Okay, here we go. At the beginning of the season, we were saying, "Uh-oh, Derek White, can he get a player of the game? Can he get a player of the spot? Can he get a player spotlight? Can we get this going for Derek White?" We keep seeing Peyton Pritchard's face up on player spotlight, and that's great. But can Derek White get one? Can Drew Holiday get one? Well, Derek White tonight, phenomenal performance yet again, and this is really a part of a nice slew of phenomenal performances for Derek White tonight. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and that says 1 block, but I believe Derek White had 2 blocks. They gave him another block at the end of the night. So disregard that 1 block because guess what? He had 2 blocks at the end of the night. Added one for him onto the stat sheet after this graphic was made. And of course, 8 of 16 from the floor, 6 of 12 from three. Now, we have had the conversation about Derek White lately that, you want to see that 3-point to 2-point balance be a little bit better there. You do, because 4 shots from two, 12 from three. Yeah, you want to see the balance be a little bit better for Derek White because really Derek White's strength is not just shooting that three ball, but it's attacking the paint. Just as we were mentioning with the entire team, Derek White's such a big part of this. Attacking the paint aggressively, collapsing the defense, becoming a facilitator, and even enacting that finishing ability that we all know Derek White has and what we saw last season. So tonight for Derek White, hey, he hit his 3-point shots, shot efficiently 50% from both the floor and from 3-point land. So you cannot be sad about that whatsoever. 2 of 4 from two, 6 of 12 from three. And when he's hitting those shots, these are the kind of performances you're going to see out of Derek White. And I'll say this too, 12 3-point attempts tonight. I said about the balance, okay? You want to see a better balance, but at the same time, take the shots in which the defense gives you. Tonight, Derek White, there are a couple shots in which were wide open, high quality threes. You have to take those shots, and that's usually when you start seeing a high volume of threes out of a couple Celtics players, particularly some of the role players. When we look at, players kind of just jacking up shots sometimes, it can kind of be Brown, Tatum, sometimes Pritchard. Derek White's certainly somebody who is a victim of that, Sam Hauser as well, but on some occasions, when you see Drew Holiday or you see Derek White shoot a high volume of threes, sometimes those occasions just involve the defense giving them those shots. And when those shots are open, we talked about it with Justin a couple weeks ago, you have to take the opportunities in which the defense gives you. So Derek White tonight, he did that, hit 6 big threes in this game, a couple late, or I shouldn't say late in the fourth quarter, but early in the fourth quarter in this game that really turned the tide for the Celtics and made this more of a blowout win than a close win by any margin. So Derek White, our Seat Geek player of the game tonight, much deserving, of course, on the top of the screen, Derek White. You see his stat line up there. Now, Derek White, this always seems to happen on this program. It's almost like you think the Celtics watch our program. The Celtics players, the Celtics coaches, we're calling them out. Do the Celtics watch Celtics Talk Weekly? Because it seems like every time we call out a player, right? Every time we kind of hone in on what's going on with this player right now. It could be any player in the lineup or what's going on with this particular philosophy within the team. The team turns it around. And that's what you also know, the conversation on this postgame. Some of the same conversation had on this postgame show is had in the locker room for the Boston Celtics because you see it change. You see, oh, we're talking about this problem. We need to fix this specific problem, or this player needs to kind of turn it up to another level. What's going on with this guy? You see it change in the Celtics locker room, and you see it change on court. And right now, Derek White, we were calling him out after Christmas. Okay, I came on here, did a whole film breakdown. Derek White's defense was atrocious, and in that game against the Indiana Pacers, not the first game in which the Celtics won by what 40, no, 38 points, right? Almost a 40-point win for the Celtics, but the second game against the Indiana Pacers where they just collapsed on that Sunday, could not get anything going whatsoever. We came in here and talked about Derek White just not being the player in which we saw last season. And we were holding off of that conversation for a while, other than myself on the film breakdown. We just had to say, we had to give the facts on Christmas Day of what it was, specifically in that fourth quarter against the Sixers. But in terms of the whole panel being in here, we had to have the Derek White conversation, and we could not hold out any longer in December. And really, since that point, feels like Derek White has just turned a corner. We think about that Raptors game. Rob was talking about in that Pacers post game. Where'd that floater go from last season? Where'd that floater go from Derek White? And then all of a sudden, you see, oh, well, what comes out? That floater from Derek White against the Toronto Raptors. It's working in the first half. Derek White's going to the rim. Derek White is being aggressive and attacking matchups in which he knows he can attack and facilitate for others, not only doing that, but also finishing at the rim, as we said. So he was doing that against the Raptors. He did it last night again against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe he had 26 points last night, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. We didn't make a graphic for it because Justin handed out his flowers to Nehemiah Cato, which I understand, deserving, Justin, I understand. But hey, Derek White, 26. You can't argue with that. It was a phenomenal performance last night. Yet tonight, Derek White comes out yet again. Oh, no, what? What are we talking about? Didn't we do Derek White player of the game last night? No, it was Jason Tatum. Sorry. I refrain from this conversation. I refrain. I don't know how I make the graphics yet. I still don't know who was player of the game and whatnot. Or no, Rob made the graphics. See, I'm totally scatterbrained right now. But Derek White, regardless, last night, 26 points. We didn't have a graphic for him. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Go watch that other post game, of course, after you're done watching this post game, of course. But Derek White, 20-point performances in back-to-back games, back-to-back nights, and a great performance again against the Toronto Raptors. And I believe he won player of the game that game. Player of the game was Derek White against the Raptors, if I'm not mistaken. We're getting our games mixed up here. Last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, dropped 26 points, and then tonight 23 points, wins player spotlight / player of the game again. So Derek White, ever since we had the conversation about Derek White, he's turned the corner. He's really turned the corner for the Boston Celtics, and this is where you get a little excited, and you still have to take a grain of salt for this Celtics team because there's still big matchups on the horizon. There's still big games to be had in the month of January because the Celtics still have to put up a consistent stretch in order for us to really believe in this team that they are not complacent, that they want to go back to back and win another title. Because in the month of December, it just didn't look like that whatsoever. This team has to regain their confidence, and we have to regain our confidence within them, of course. And part of that stems from Derek White's play and the role players on the Celtics, their play, because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they've turned it up to another level as of late. Yet some of the role players on the Boston Celtics, what's going on here? It's maybe Derek White on one night, kind of goes away, and then it's Drew Holiday maybe another night, goes away. Both those guys have been in the conversation, not being quite the same as last season. Peyton Pritchard's really been the man who stepped up in the guard rotation in December, of course, as we know, and just not been quite the same for the Boston Celtics in terms of their role player contribution from last year. Yet right now, the last 3 games, we're starting to see an uptick in that role player contribution, especially considering some of the absences the Boston Celtics have seen as of late. You think about last night, Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown do not play. The Celtics are missing 2 starters, and then tonight, Al Horford doesn't play, and Jaylen Brown, 2 critical role players. I shouldn't say role players, but 2 critical players who play roles on this team. Al Horford is the role player. We all know Jaylen Brown is the star. But when you're missing those guys, and really this has been part of the conversation for the Celtics this season too, is the inconsistency in lineups. You got to see the contributions from the role players, and that's what the Celtics needed over these last couple of games, and that's what they've been seeing. And Derek White, this is where the conversation gets a little jaded here because you called Derek White a role player, you called Drew Holiday a role player. They seem like they're above that status. They're really high level starters, but they're still role players relative to Brown and Tatum. And even talking about Drew Holiday tonight, 14 points from Drew, 2 of 5 from three, 5 of 9 from the floor. And Drew Holiday, he had this game, he set the tone for the Boston Celtics in this game early on. It looked like, hey, maybe Drew Holiday player spotlight tonight. And yet Derek White, he ran ahead of the field, of course, as the game progressively moved on. But Drew Holiday set the tone for the Boston Celtics in this game. And he was part of, along with Derek White, that contribution the Celtics need to see out of their guard rotation, who isn't named Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard, he's been consistent this season, yet Derek White, Drew Holiday, we talk about them. What's going on? Why are they not the same as last season? What happened exactly over the summer to these two players? What's happening to these players within the Celtics offense and their defense? Yet tonight, you see 37 combined points from Holiday and White, and they shoot what, 13 of 25 from the floor. So very efficient shooting line from those guards. That's almost like another star player the Celtics are adding if you contribute, or if you consider the contributions of Derek White and Drew Holiday. And even looking further down the stat sheet, I mean, Peyton Pritchard, we just glossed over him, quite frankly. You look at this entire guard rotation for the Celtics right now, one of the best guard rotations in the league. You look at the big rotation, might be one of the best. I don't know if you want to say best, but maybe one of the deepest big man rotations in the league. You consider all 5 Celtics bigs, but then now you look at the guard rotation for the Celtics. And this is why the Celtics team is just a juggernaut of a squad, because you have Peyton Pritchard, 8 of 10 tonight for Peyton Pritchard, 4 of 6 from three, 20 points from P. And of course, if you add that onto the contributions of White and Holiday, that's 57 points you're getting from your guard rotation if you're the Boston Celtics tonight. And Peyton Pritchard is hitting his shots at this clip. Derek White's hitting his shots at this clip. If Drew Holiday, now we'll have the Drew Holiday conversation right now. Drew Holiday is playing like he did last season, and it's phenomenal to see, because Drew Holiday, he, like I said, he set the tone for this game by, and we've kind of touched on it already at the beginning of this post game. It's about driving into the paint, being aggressive, putting a shoulder into the defense, and really making a defense collapse to the Boston Celtics and feel the Boston Celtics, so that the Celtics can both get opportunities around the rim and on the perimeter. Where Drew Holiday, he was such a big factor in that for the Boston Celtics last season, because he is a very, very physical guard. Drew Holiday, you ask anybody around the league, he's one of the most physical guards in the NBA. And this season we've seen, Drew Holiday, he just can't get it going around the rim. He's not aggressive going towards the rim, maybe settling a little bit too much. Kind of really a player that you would think in terms of, oh, the Celtics are settling a little bit too much from three. They're jacking up too many shots from three. Yeah, Drew Holiday, he was part of that conversation for the Boston Celtics yet tonight. He was 5 of 9 from the floor and 2 of 5 from three, but that's that balance, 4 shots from inside the paint. And Drew Holiday, in the early portion of this game, he's what got it going for the Boston Celtics, driving down low, getting buckets against Alperen Şengün, which we'll see in this breakdown, and which is coming up in a little bit here. Drew Holiday, physical guard, he's going up against the center like he's the more he's the enforcer, he is the more physical player. And to have that kind of contribution from Drew Holiday, that's what the Celtics saw last season from Drew, is him going inside of the paint, finishing inside of the paint, hitting that corner three, and of course distributing to others on the perimeter. And tonight, Drew Holiday, he did that for the Boston Celtics. And you even look at the rest of his line: 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block for Drew tonight. And this is really the ideal performance the Celtics want to see out of their both guard rotation, and not only their guard rotation, but their entire role player rotation. You look at even down the stat sheet, and let's do it. Let's do it, folks. Let's hand out Justin's flowers tonight. Justin's flowers, presented by Bucket Squad, go to Mr. Luke Cornett. I mean, look at this from Luke Cornett: 9 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 of 7 from the field, 2 stocks, part of that stock exchange for the Boston Celtics. 1 steal, 1 block, 2 stocks, of course. And Luke Cornett, he was a part of that role player contribution for the Boston Celtics. And look, I know I've had a grift with Mr. Justin here over his flowers, maybe last night, giving out to Kata over Pritchard and Derek White. But I will say, I think he got it right tonight. I think Luke Cornett certainly deserves these flowers because when you're getting a performance like this out of Luke Cornett, 4 of 7 from the floor, 9 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. Luke Cornett, this is what we've kind of touched on already. The Celtics with their guard rotation, it's becoming one of the best, deepest guard rotations in the league. Well, look at their big man rotation. Last night we were handing out flowers to Nehemias Queta. We are giving his flowers out. Yet tonight, who are we going to? We're going to Luke Cornett. And let's face it, folks, they're not even their two best bigs. The Celtics, you have Al Horford out there. Now, he's had his struggles as of late. We talked about him. You have Kristaps Porzingis out there. And even Xavier Tillman, who, unfortunately, Xavier Tillman hasn't been used a lot for the Boston Celtics this year as much as we thought. However, you still have those 3 other bigs for the Boston Celtics, and you still have Luke Cornett and Nehemias Queta winning flowers, Justin's flowers, of course. And this is what the Celtics want to see. It's not just Brown and Tatum. And Brown, of course, didn't play tonight. Tatum had 20 points in this matchup, 6 rebounds, 5 assists for Tatum, 719. But the role player contribution is really what I'm honing in on right now, really what I'm putting an emphasis on, because you see all the other players. Drew Holiday, solid performance. Derek White, player spotlight. Peyton Pritchard, he had a bid for player spotlight as well tonight. And Luke Cornett, he wins flowers. And even think about, we're going to talk about Queta in a second too. Queta was phenomenal in this game as well. So I think Luke Cornett winning flowers was perfect tonight. I totally agree with Justin in that regard. 100%, no doubt, given all of the role player success on this Celtics roster, because I think it symbolizes what the Celtics need out of this team, just as a whole, and out of their role players. And just tonight, the game as well. You look at who contributed for the Boston Celtics, it was an all around contribution from everybody who wasn't named Brown or Tatum. And that included Luke Cornett, who grabbed 10 boards tonight. I just missed out on that double-double. We got to get him one more dunk in this game, but 9 points, 4 assists as well, and 4 of 7 from the floor. This was Luke Cornett's matchup tonight against the Houston Rockets. So well-deserved for Luke Cornett. And it really just goes in with the conversation of all the role player success for the Boston Celtics. That's really what you look at in the stat sheet tonight, and really just on the floor. It's all the other guys, the others, okay? You're going to have your star players perform each and every night, and they're going to have to come in the most crucial moments. But it's all the other guys who uplift the success, not only for great championship teams of the past, but this great championship level Boston Celtics team. And Luke Cornett wins flowers tonight. Derek White, player spotlight. Peyton Pritchard, Drew Holiday, and I'll even touch on Queta real quick too. Queta, he's kind of come back a little bit here, I would say, because Queta, we were talking about, yeah, it's early season success for the Boston Celtics. Seemed like the Celtics had something in Queta, but then really went downhill. Really wasn't playing well, didn't play well in that Warriors game earlier this season at the Garden, didn't play well in that Cavaliers game. Some of the biggest matchups of the season, Queta didn't play well in, and then really had his minutes stripped from him this season in the lineup, and we didn't see much of Queta in the month of December yet. These last couple of games, last night and tonight, Queta comes out and he makes an impact on the floor as a physical rebounder, physical defender, and somebody who can work on both ends of the floor, being in the right position for the Boston Celtics and just really filling those minutes. We want to see a player like Queta and even Cornett too. I know some people, it's like, oh yeah, Cornett, and there's this high potential of impact for Cornett. But in reality, these are minutes fillers for the Boston Celtics when guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford miss games, and when they're maybe not at their best level, and when we want to, or when Joe Mazzulla rather wants to skimp a couple of minutes from Porzingis, Horford here and there. Cornett and Queta have been big this season in regards to giving the Celtics the ability to just play those guys and feel confident in, okay, these two bigs are not going to destroy us out on the floor in terms of just being unplayable. Both Cornett and Queta are two playable bigs in small stints, and Queta tonight, along with Cornett, they came in and made a contribution to the Boston Celtics. Even last night, we saw in Minnesota, it was the same case defensively, rebounding, deterring shots, and just doing all of the little things in which a big man needs to do in order to stay on the floor and fill minutes in a time in which the team, or the Boston Celtics rather, just don't want to be destroyed from a certain aspect of the game. Sometimes we do see the Celtics compromise from a couple of matchups depending on what a lineup is versus another lineup. We saw it on Christmas. The Sixers were running 5 out with 3 forwards and 2 guards, and we were putting Cornette out there, and it just didn't make any sense. But in other matchups, when you can go and insert players like Cornette and Keita, and they can give you a nice stretch, that's what we're talking about when we talk about margins, right? There's these little margins in the NBA that will just tilt the game one way or the other. We think last night, Celtics won by 3. Anthony Edwards had a shot at the end of the game to send the game into overtime. The Celtics make one less 3. If the Timberwolves hit one more 3, that game is going into overtime, or the Celtics lose. So it's just the tiny margins, it's the tiny minutes in between that really matter. And that's where Keita and Cornette can come in so big for the Celtics. It's just that, okay, when Horford's sitting out, when Porzingis is sitting out, or we're trying to limit Porzingis's minutes here a little bit, we are not losing those minutes with Keita and Cornette on the floor. And I believe Keita last night in Flowers, he was a plus 17 in that game in a 3-point win. So that just kind of exemplifies that point right there for the Boston Celtics entirely. Now, other points to get to in this game for the Celtics, just kind of touched on a lot already. I do want to touch on a specific player that I think, I don't know if this is the best performance to really touch on him, just because he only played 8 minutes tonight, no points, nothing stat sheet really. Jordan Walsh, he's been getting a little bit more of a run for the Boston Celtics as of late, and I think this is something we kind of, something we need to watch out for. We've been seeing a lot more Jordan Walsh out there as of late, and we talked about earlier this season. Is Jordan Walsh, is he going to be a consistent role player for the Boston Celtics? Because in preseason, he was phenomenal. Summer League, phenomenal. Jordan Walsh, the reason we thought that Jordan Walsh was going to come in and be a consistent role player for the Celtics, it was 3 reasons. It was, number one, he's always been a great defensive player. Okay, Jordan Walsh, we drafted him as this long, lengthy defensive guy. And that was never a question about his game. He could always get out there and defend for the Boston Celtics and defend at a high level. Defensive player, okay, you got that end of the floor covered. You at least need to have that if you want to be on an NBA floor. The defensive ability, okay, as a long wing, agile wing, very active with his feet and his hands. Jordan Walsh had that category covered coming into the league and last year and coming into this year. Number 2, it was the 3-point jump shot. Jordan Walsh's 3-point jump shot, silky smooth. One of the, if you really count out Tatum, might be the silkiest jumper on the Celtics team Jordan Walsh has. I know everybody saw him in the first game of the season missing a ton of threes to try to break the record at the end, but it just felt like every time Jordan Walsh released a 3, so, ooh, silky, silky. Oh, this is going in silky. And it felt like that in Summer League and the preseason, and it felt like it was much improved from where it was last season. You could tell that Jordan Walsh had put in that work in the gym on his jumper. So you have the defensive ability for Jordan Walsh, you have Jordan Walsh's jumper, but also the third one, and this is the most crucial for a player to come in and really contribute to an NBA squad, it was the decisiveness with the ball in Jordan Walsh's hands. In preseason, it was astonishing to see how decisive Jordan Walsh was with the ball in his hands, because last year looked like a scared deer out there. I mean, come on, you have the ball in his hands, and it was immediately, oh, what do I do with this? What do I do? Get rid of it? I don't know. Should I dribble? Should I pass? Should I? Derek White, or I shouldn't say Derek White, Jordan Walsh here. Not talking about Derek White here. Got the bald heads mixed up there for a second in my head. But Jordan Walsh, he just did not have that decisiveness last year, and that's really what you see out of a lot of young NBA players. A lot of them. You don't even have to be a second round pick. You don't have to be an undrafted guy. You see guys drafted in the top 10 come in and not know what to do with the ball in their hands, and they have to develop from that standpoint within their mentality and just within their thought process of processing the entire game, specifically on the offensive end of the floor. When the ball comes to them, what is their role? What are they going to do with the ball? What are they supposed to be doing within the scheme of the offense in that given moment? And Jordan Walsh It seemed as if coming into this season, both in summer league and then a little bit less so, put a less stock into summer league, but particularly preseason, it looked like, oh, Jordan Walsh is turning that corner a little bit to where, hey, when he has the ball in his hands, he doesn't look scared of the ball anymore. He looks confident with the ball. You think about the one play that I really keep going back on is when Jordan Walsh drove in for the game-winning layup against the Toronto Raptors. Unfortunately, Brandon Carlson, who was playing for the Raptors at the time, phenomenal block at the rim on Jordan Walsh, and you really just got to give it up to Carlson for that defensive stance. But really, Jordan Walsh, that decision you saw in the moment, when Jordan Walsh had the ball in his hands, it was quick, decisive, to the rim. I'm winning this game. I'm going to the rim. I'm driving hard. I'm laying this thing in. Fortunately, good defensive play stopped it, but just that decision making within Jordan Walsh made us think this man, with his defensive ability, with his ability to shoot threes, and with that decisiveness, there's a pathway for Jordan Walsh to be a role player on the Boston Celtics, a consistent role player at that. Yet, as the season started, Jordan Walsh reverted back into, what do I do with the ball in my hands? What do I do with the ball in my hands? And unfortunately, minutes started to dwindle for Jordan Walsh, if they ever really appeared on the horizon for Jordan Walsh as the season started. Yet now we're seeing a couple more minutes here and there for Jordan Walsh. Certainly saw him more in those Indiana games, the Toronto game, and tonight we saw him in only 8 minutes, but we are starting to see Jordan Walsh a little bit more. And I know Jaylen Brown missed tonight's game, so maybe that's there's a little bit of a factor in that, I will mention. But Jordan Walsh, something to look out for. I think we'll talk about him more moving ahead on the post game.
We sure will.
Oh yes, we will talk about it. First of all, this style of post game, like, wow, didn't realize how great this layout would be. But let's get it to our normal layout here. Trying to figure out which one it is. Is there still a line in the middle here? No, we're good. We're good. We are good. All right, Franco. We've been through a lot here on this post game already. We're 47 minutes in. First of all, everybody, welcome Mr. Nick Franco into the post game tonight, making a surprise appearance here. Talking about Jordan Walsh here, as you know, coming into, and I was just kind of wrapping my point up about Jordan Walsh, but we talked about it the other night off of live when it came to Jordan Walsh and his ability to potentially be a role player. Now, he only played 8 minutes tonight, didn't stuff the stat sheet, didn't do anything phenomenal. But do you see a pathway right now? It's like, maybe Jordan Walsh, could he be that consistent role player the Celtics insert as the season moves along, as we thought in the preseason?
Yeah, there's still a 9th or 10th spot available on the Celtics roster. And I think that Jordan Walsh could be the person to fill it. We've seen the potential from him. If you follow the main Celtics as we do over on Celtics Talk Weekly. But he's been a player that's been filling up. I think he has a lot of raw potential on the Celtics team and on the Celtics roster. And I think that he is someone who has really stepped up over the past few years or past 2 years to help this team grow. I think that he's a player that could help out in the wing position, because you look at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're obviously the 2 top priority wings. And then you look at Sam Hauser, who is more of a role player on the Celtics bench and someone who the Celtics can rely on to make their 3-pointers. But Jordan Walsh brings that athleticism that the Celtics have been looking for. And tonight's game was a very distinctive win for the Celtics. A nice back-to-back win. They were able to dominate this game through the second half, and they were able to carry on with a nice monumentous win. And that's something that we've been harping on throughout these post-game shows, is the halftime adjustments that Joe Mazzulla has been hoping. We've been hoping that Joe Mazzulla is able to make. And something that we're really excited for. And I think that moving forward, we're going to see Jordan Walsh become a more distinctive player in the minutes that he receives, and also as a player that we're going to see develop into a player we can see have a more all-around game that impacts the Celtics in a progressive way.
Now, speaking of players who are impacting the Celtics in a more progressive way, we talked about in this post game already the role player contributions from the Boston Celtics tonight. Think about Derek White, player spotlight. Think about Luke Cornett, Justin's flowers tonight, of
Yes.
course. No grift with the flowers tonight. I don't have a grift.
Nope,
tonight.
we're not going to have Justin coming after us tonight.
No, Justin will be on a post game here soon, and it's gonna be fun. People are gonna have to tune into that post game when Justin comes on. I'm sure we're gonna be having some fun when we give out the flowers on that post game. But aside from Cornette and Derek White, who won awards tonight on the CTW network here, you have Drew Holiday give a consistent contribution for the Boston Celtics tonight. And even looking down the stat sheet for Boston, you have Peyton Pritchard as well, 20 points on the night. That guard rotation of Pritchard, White, Holiday. We talked about them a lot this season, but even away from that, Cornette and Keita, and we were even just talking about Jordan Walsh here and his uptick in minutes. But recently, see this Boston Celtic role player cast, they've been a little down this season. Okay, Pritchard's been up, but everybody else has been down for most of the season. And yet right now we're seeing kind of a corner turn by this role player cast for the Boston Celtics. So from your perspective, Franco, what do you believe is the biggest factor in the role players really coming up and stepping up right now for the Boston Celtics? Is it the Celtics game plan? Is it the Celtics scheme? Is it the Celtics rotation? Is it just these individual players really locking in and playing better? What is the biggest factor right now in these Celtics role players contributing to a level we saw more last year opposed to what we saw at the beginning this year?
Well, we've seen a lot of these players throughout the years. Most of the players on the Celtics bench were here for a championship season, and we saw them be able to get a ring and be able to get that championship DNA within them. And we look at a player like Sam Hauser, who was able to step up, and we've been able to see him develop in different ways. He's not just a three-point shooter on this team. He's a player that teams may focus on to try to take a mismatch on, but Sam Hauser's been able to find a way to find that scoring mark for the Celtics team and be able to help out on the defensive end. He's been able to contribute. I mean, Peyton Pritchard, we've seen him develop into the player that he's become, that six-man candidate. And I think
we got to get the clips out. We got to pull the receipts.
Oh, my goodness.
That was just amazing earlier. When you guys sent those clips in the group chat, it was like, whoa. Franco has a crystal ball in his room, and
hey,
Rob kind of wanted to smash it on the floor.
Yeah, not so bad of a radio boy take. Am I right, Justin? I mean, if we have
just picked on Justin so much during his absence on the show.
Well,
he's coming back with full force, I swear, at us. He's going to do it.
He always does. He's the person that's always on us, so we're going to get on him until he's back in the rotation. But we've seen a lot of Peyton Pritchard's moments be able to shine through, and we also saw Neemias Queta be able to have a great performance tonight. We were able to see him step up. So Luke Cornett, being able to see those two guys behind Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford, who are usually a question mark going into a game, especially a back-to-back like we had tonight with the Rockets. Those guys being able to step up and being able to feel a little bit more comfortable within the roles and rotation in the Celtics roster is a great sign for the Celtics moving forward.
I think, too, that's really, if you look at what the Celtics have been able to do lately and their rough stretch, during the rough stretch, Brown and Tatum were going off. We were talking about, Tatum, look at this 40-point performance, Brown 40-point performance. Now, those are games in which the Celtics actually blew out their opponent and won. But even during the losses, we saw a solid Tatum performance here, solid Brown performance here or there. And those were not really the points and questions we were asking about this team. We saw Brown and Tatum. That was really the silver lining in that rough stretch, is Brown and Tatum they were going up to this next level. And really the questions they laid in terms of, oh, Derek White, what's going on here? Drew Holiday, Al Horford, of course, he didn't play tonight, but it was all the role players, right? It was all the role players in which we were asking questions about and going, what kind of contribution can the Celtics actually get out of these guys? And what do they need to do in order to really, we talked about a lot too, the cohesion of this entire Celtics squad, the collectiveness of this Celtics squad. We saw it last season, and that's what's so confusing. Everybody in Celtics Nation this year was confused by the fact we came into this year and somehow we're harboring the same exact roster plus Baylor Shireman minus O'Shea Brissett. Really not that big of a difference at all. Everybody else is the same. And some of these guys, they're a little bit better, like Peyton Pritchard, right? Sam Hauser maybe a little bit better, right? We haven't, well, I should say, haven't seen him contribute that much to the level in which we have in the past. But in terms of his
We'll get
defensive
it.
ability and ability to play minutes and come out and like start like he did tonight, right? Now he only had 0 points tonight, but he did start, was put in the rotation in that regard. Those players are more enhanced. Pritchard and Hauser are more enhanced as players, not just on the offensive end, but on both ends of the floor. And some of the rotation, you look at all the role players, what's going on with this entire team not being able to really dish out everybody's food to where it's supposed to be on each person's plate this year? Because last year the team did so well of eating from one another's plate that it worked to a level in which we saw the Celtics reach one of the best records in NBA history throughout the entire season last year. When it was all said and done, the Celtics had a top 10 record of all time, almost a top 5 record of all time. They just didn't lose in the NBA Finals to the Dallas Mavericks, or really to the Heat or to the Cavs, whatever you want to say, in the playoffs, or any game last season. Really, one more game in the Celtics, their top 5 record last year. It's like, what was going on with this team coming into the season where the collectiveness, specifically the offensive end of the floor, and even defensively too, it takes all 5 guys to defend. The rotations in preseason, not crisp, but then coming out into the season, not getting at it physically, not rotating crisply, and then offensively, not really, I don't want to say not sharing the ball, but not quite sharing the ball in the same way, not quite contributing, or I should say, the rhythm of the offense is not the same as it was last season.
A little more
Yet now,
hearable.
yet now it's like the role players, right? Specifically the role players. And I keep saying that for the Boston Celtics because this is what's so big. Brown and Tatum, they were not the problem points during the Celtics rough stretch. They were the silver linings. And it was everybody else. It was, can we get the whole team to come with them? We talked, Rob talked about it. Does anybody else want to come with Jaylen Brown the night he dropped 35 points in Orlando? And Jason Tatum missed that game, of course, and the Celtics lost by 4. But that type of performance and that point right there, can other guys just come with Brown and Tatum? And right now, I think that is one of the biggest things we're seeing in terms of the Boston Celtics being able to turn the corner at this moment in time. Now, it's only been 3 games. Got to see more of it. 2 big games still ahead of us. Denver, Oklahoma City, or Oklahoma City first, and then Denver. So those are going to be 2 big matchups in which test the Celtics mightily. But these 2 tests already, the back-to-back to start the West Coast road trip, Houston, Minnesota, and even go back to the New Year's Eve matchup against the Toronto Raptors, where the Celtics, they start the game out horribly and then they start smacking the Raptors all over the floor. These 3 games, Celtics are turning the corner a little bit, starting to make a statement right now after their rough stretch, 3 straight wins here. And the biggest factor in those wins is everyone else. It's Derek White. It's Luke Cornett. It's Neemias Queta. It's Peyton Pritchard. Of course, he's been phenomenal all season. But it's been Drew Holiday. They've been playing some of their best basketball all season, Derek White and Drew Holiday specifically, during the stretch. And that's really what's made the Celtics team look a lot different over these last 3 games than what we talked about during those 6 games. Would you agree with that, Franco?
Yeah, definitely. I think that we are seeing these players be able to step up a little bit more, and we're going to be able to see these players step up a lot more as time goes forward. One thing that we want to highlight is the CBA contracts, and let's face it, the Celtics roster isn't going to be able to look as well at it as it is as long as we can. We're going to try to hold this roster together as long as we can. I mean, obviously having 5 all-star caliber players, if you even want to include Peyton Pritchard or Al Horford in the conversation as great role players on this team. It's with the CBA now, it's going to be almost hard to maintain this type of team, and something that us as fans cannot take for granted. I think being able to get this type of production out of these players as we have them on this roster is something that's going to be monumentous moving forward. And it's also a good dictation for the Celtics future. And when I say the Celtics future, I'm not talking about coming up in the next few months. I'm talking about within the next year or so. We're talking about 2026, 2027. We're looking at this roster. They're going to have to make some moves to even out the cap space. You obviously want to pay everyone on this roster as much as we can. And it's not going to be able to maintain that type of record or type of paychecks. We're not going to be able to pay those types of bills. Obviously, we're well over that second apron. And I think that it's something that we're going to be able to develop on. And that's why being able to see this type of production out of a Jordan Walsh or a Sam Hauser or even a Peyton Pritchard, who I have talked about being able to move into a starting position as the years go forward, because he's still a very young player, still in his mid-20s, is going to be someone who can almost put himself in a prominent role as time goes forward. We obviously know that Jrue Holiday is an aging player, and being able to get this type of contributions around the team is a good tall tale sign for this team moving forward.
I'm so glad you brought up the point of the CBA and all the contracts, because we never talked about it during this rough stretch, because we were more honed in on just the individual games in themselves and the Celtics team and what they needed to do out on the floor. But really part of the conversation during that rough stretch, when we were kind of ringing the alarm bells a little bit, we're going, what's going on with the effort here? What's going on with the team? This team doesn't look ready to go back to back. It seems like they're blowing their opportunity to be that next dynasty on the NBA stage. The Boston Celtics are during that stretch, right? We never talked about this, but it's so important for the Boston Celtics to actually go out there and perform to their highest level this year, to where we know they can be at, which is potentially one of the greatest teams ever. We saw last season, top 10 record of all time, winning the NBA title. This Celtics team is on par with the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant. That's how much talent this Celtics team has. And it's guys like Kristaps Porzingis, it's guys like Jrue Holiday, those additions to the Boston Celtics, along with Derek White, of course, Tatum and Brown, the spearheads of that as well. Pritchard, Horford, Hauser off the bench, and Cornette and Katie. You want to add them? And I'm sure Randy would gladly add those two players into the mix. But you talk about all these guys, right? And right now, you can't really play with your food if you're the Boston Celtics, because of what you said. You don't know within this new CBA era, because it's very new. It's only been around since 2023. So you think 2023, the Celtics, they did what they did in the offseason in 2023. That's the first year in which was enacted the new collective bargaining agreement. So it's only been around for 2 seasons. We have not seen this really play out into the future. It takes time for us to see the ramifications of new collective bargaining agreements play out. And we're already kind of seeing it within trade season a little bit already. I think Jimmy Butler would probably not be in this weird trade battle with the Miami Heat if the CBA wasn't around. I think they would have traded him a long time ago, because the trade would have been out there and it wouldn't have been as complicated to actually create a trade with another team. So that, just for example, there, it's like Jimmy Butler situation might not be happening in the same way under the old collective bargaining agreement. Yet now, trades are much harder to make. It's much harder to pay guys big money. It's also just when teams make a mistake of paying a player in which does not play up to the value of their contract, their deal, it just hampers a team significantly. And right now, the Celtics, they are at an unsustainable level of paying players in the future. They have given White an extension, Jrue Holiday an extension, Brown, and Tatum, they have contracts into the future. Porzingis, and all 5 of those guys, the starters really for the Boston Celtics, their numbers alone make up an astronomical number. You don't even factor the numbers. And I will say this, Peyton Pritchard, complete bargain player right now. Complete bargain. He's making what,
100%.
7 million to be the 6th man of the year. I mean, that's just that's crazy for the Boston Celtics to be. We've always dreamed of that. Really, we think about the Isaiah Thomas era. You think about other players across the league where a team has a bargain on a player. Can we get a guy like that? Can we just have a guy? We had that in Peyton Pritchard, of course, right now. But really, all the other salaries, you don't even factor in Pritchard. You don't factor in Hauser's eventual payday into the future. I mean, Al Horford, he's old. You might not have to worry about him into the future. But all the other role players, right? The role players on the Celtics right now and the role players the Celtics could potentially gain into the future, whether it's young guys who develop. We were just talking about Jordan Walsh, if he actually turns into something, or it's other guys that you could sign around the league. Celtics are not going to be able to pay players into the future at all. And I don't want to say this is why Wick is selling the team, because he won a championship, won 2 titles with the team, still owning the team, although there's rumors that this team will be sold very, very soon. The Boston Celtics will be. So how long Wick will be around? We notice, I'll add this, Wick used to sit right behind the basket, right? Now he's on the sideline. There's just a little weird detail there. You notice when an owner is selling a team, right, and he all of a sudden is moving locations on the floor, right? We saw with Mark Cuban. He was always there. I shouldn't say he was always there holding. The Mavericks went to 2 NBA Finals, right? 2006, 2011. He was there holding up the trophies, Western Conference, and of course the title in 2011. Mark Cuban was out there. Yet when he sold the team, he was not. Remember the story was Mark Cuban. He's still owner, right? But he's not majority owner, and he's not the actual owner of the team anymore. He has a lower stake in the team, but he still has his hands in basketball operations. He's just not going to be the owner. Well, guess what? He wasn't out there on the trophy stage, and it was the new owners who were out there, and that's kind of a little bit what we're seeing with Wick right now. It's like, why is he not behind the basket anymore? He's on the sideline. Just those little subtle differences. You notice the owners, the old owners, and Wick is still technically the owner of the Celtics, or majority owner. You start seeing him pushed out of the equation, pushed out of the picture a little bit when they go and sell the team. And Wick, of course, his investment to the Boston Celtics, phenomenal payday for Wick. I mean, you think about when he bought this team back in the 90s or 90s, early 2000s.
100%.
Right now, this team is worth, I don't know, triple, quadruple, way more than it was. I don't want to put an exact number on it, but it's a significantly higher number now in which the team is worth than it was when he bought the team. So you factor that in, and also the Celtics just won another title, and you think, okay, well, maybe those are 2 of the biggest factors for Wick to sell the team, just doubling his investment, tripling, quadrupling, plus the Celtics win another title. You win 2 titles. You have that reputation as an owner, 2008, 2024, you'll always have that. But at the same time, you look at the entire bill in which the Celtics are racking up into the future, and the luxury tax, we'll detail this for people. The salary cap comes from league revenue. So salary cap comes from the entire collective revenue of the league, and then that revenue is distributed out to every single team to sign players. So that's not coming directly out of owners' pockets. Now, some owners, it kind of is, because you think some teams make more revenue than others. It's a revenue sharing league. So you think the Lakers make, and the Lakers, hey, we'll add the Boston Celtics in there. They make this amount of revenue. Well, the Magic and Pacers, they might be down here, but the salary cap puts them right there. And so, yes, some teams are paying more out of their pocket technically to have the entire league work out, but that's just the way the league works. And that's part of the, again, CBA that we're talking about. But the Celtics, the luxury tax, once you go beyond the salary cap and all of the, I should say exceptions, I shouldn't say limitations, the exceptions in which the league gives teams, because the salary cap is formed to not limit teams, but to give teams an extra ability to move around and make moves within the league, whether it's trades, signing players. There's all these exceptions all over the board. It's a soft cap, okay? We don't really have now teams nowadays. The word hard cap, right, is coming into the conversation more because the collective bargaining agreement and the league is putting more of a restraint on teams to actually go out there and move because they want more teams to look the same from year to year and players to just stop moving around like crazy because it's kind of ruining some of the
Right.
rivalry conversation in the league. But regardless, the hard cap's coming into more of the conversation, but it's a soft cap. The salary at the end of the day, the salary cap is a soft cap. So there's all these exceptions in which teams can maneuver and play around with. Well, once you get past those, okay, once you get past all of what the league gives you, you go into the luxury tax, right? You go into the luxury tax. The luxury tax, all of that money is coming out of the owner's pocket.
Yeah.
So whatever business they're running, like, okay, you sell water bottles or you sell shirts or you sell, these owners, they sell a lot more than that. Okay. I'm just saying that it's usually technology, all this billionaire stuff, but it's coming directly out of their other companies, their pockets. And that's the interesting conversation with the Celtics bill right now and their luxury tax that they're just continuously spending into is that when that bill comes due, that's a lot of millions. That's a lot of money coming out of the owner's pocket, whoever is the Celtics owner at the time. And Wick, this is where sometimes you go, so right now it's like he's giving the green light for the Celtics, particularly Brad Stevens, to spend and extend all these players. But at the same time, he might not be around to pay the bill for what all these players are going to cost eventually in the future. And really, when that time comes due, it could be another owner. That other owner could eventually just fork it up like Steve Ballmer. I mean, the Clippers basically work in the negative every single season because Steve Ballmer doesn't care. I mean, he's when you're making as much money as Steve Ballmer makes off of Microsoft, I'm quite certain he does not care about what he's spending with the Clippers. Celtics could have that type of owner, but at the end of the day, the new owner is likely going to come in and go, we have to make budget cuts here on the roster. We have to. It's going to be maybe Drew Holiday, maybe Porzingis. Could Brown or Tatum, specifically not Tatum, maybe more Brown? Could Derek White be a part of that budget cut? You hate to say it, but right now, you hate to say it, but that's really what the reality is with this team. One day, those tough decisions are going to have to be made, and maybe they're made easier by we see players like Drew Holiday. Maybe he's kind of decreasing in production just a little bit this season, getting a little bit older. Kristaps Porzingis, he's more injury prone. Maybe Brown or Tatum, they regress to a level in which one of them is justified to be moved off. You really do not want to talk about that. Maybe Derek White as well. You don't want to talk about any of this stuff. This is a horrible conversation, but it's realistic to have because maybe some of this stuff is made easier down the line. But at the same time, it really goes back to the point. I'm just rambling on here. Still breakdowns to get to, by the way. Still rambling on here about salary cap. I could talk about this for hours, but it comes back to the point of this season is important for the Boston Celtics because this team is what they are right now. This team is the juggernaut they are right now. And there's no guarantee that next season or the season after that or the season after that, there won't be budget cuts. There won't be a cut made. I shouldn't say it's not like a player's going to be waived, but we saw with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Part of the Timberwolves, and this is just crazy to me, looking back on it right now, and we faced Timberwolves last time, we saw their offense and just how putrid it can look at times. The Timberwolves traded Karl Anthony Towns, their franchise face before Anthony Edwards. It was kind of a changing of the guard there a little bit when Edwards came around. But the Timberwolves traded Karl Anthony Towns, not just because they thought, oh, we're going to win this trade by getting Julius Randle, DiVincenzo, and these picks. Now, we thought, hey, they have a good chance to win this trade, getting more back for Towns. But it was really about the salary. The Timberwolves, now, let me pull up the number real quick because I wrote about this earlier in the season, before the season. I actually don't think I ever released this article, but I still wrote about it regardless. I can still release the article one day, but I have the numbers here in my notes about the money the Timberwolves saved from this, okay? Minnesota, year from year. This year, Minnesota saved $2 million. Okay, that's still, that's not that much, but at the same time, the margins are thin. So you got to think, okay, $2 million, that could make a little bit of difference when you're like the Minnesota Timberwolves, who it could come down to that level. And you think, okay, Randall, DiVincenzo, blah. Next year, if Randall opts out, okay, this Timberwolves save $41 million. Okay, now if he opts in, they only save 10, which is still substantial. 10
Right.
or 41 million. After that, in 2027, the Timberwolves 26-27, the Timberwolves save 44 million by trading Towns. And then in 27-28, they now this is, I will say, oh, Franco popped off the screen here. I'll keep going. In 27-28, the Timberwolves, if Towns were to opt into his deal, which we don't know if he's going to do it or not, now they could have either saved nothing that year into the future. Towns could have opted out, or if Towns opts in, the Timberwolves saved $61 million that season. So you start to see the picture here of why the
Right.
Timberwolves actually moved Karl Anthony Towns. It wasn't just talent for talent, it was to save money. So we see that decision be made across the league. And with this Boston Celtics team, that's really why the season is so crucial, because we don't know when those decisions are going to start to be made. We don't know when this team's going to be sold. We don't know what type of owner is going to take over the Boston Celtics and what type of pocketbook. Now, you'd expect a pretty deep pocketbook if you're buying an NBA team right now at its highest value point it's ever been, right? It's like buying Bitcoin at 100K plus. It's like, okay, well, you could have bought it at 20 a couple years ago, 100K plus
Yep.
right now. But it's in terms of buying an NBA team, the pocketbook is probably going to be deep for the next owner regardless. However, you don't know what resides in the future for the Celtics. And that's what, this is such a large grand scheme conversation. But at the
Yeah.
same time, the rough stretch, that's what really was concerning, because we're going, this is a season in which the Celtics, their title window is open, wide open, wide open. And we cannot be seeing effort problems. We can't be seeing execution problems. We can't be seeing problems with a team that's supposed to go back to back, could establish themselves as the next dynasty in the NBA. And really, you never know when these championship windows, you never know when they're going to close. We saw Denver's championship window. How open is it right now? We don't know. Milwaukee, their championship window barely open. I know these two teams still have Giannis and Jokic, and that's what's really going to give them a chance
They won
later
their
on in the season.
Yeah, they won their championships before the CBA and was in place.
And that's what's also interesting about this is the Celtics were actually able to do everything in order to acquire these players like Porzingis and Holiday before the entire CBA was actually fully in place. So you think about, in the future, the Celtics, yes, could they, or one, yes, question, are they going to be able to pay these players and keep them around? But secondly, are they going to be able to make the same moves to attain sort of the same talent of roster, that same level of talent on the roster? So I know I just rambled on for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, it feels like, about the
Yeah, no,
CBA. But that it deserves to be a conversation, because
right.
we didn't talk about it on the individual games of going, the Celtics, they lost to the Magic. Let's talk about the CBA right now and the future
Right.
implications. It's like, okay, chill out. We only lost a couple games here. And it is still like that for the Boston Celtics. We're focusing more on this season, of course. But that is a very interesting long-term look at the team regardless. I don't know if you want
Yeah,
to
no.
add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I don't want to break the fourth wall or anything, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not sitting courtside anymore, is because one of the connections I had was a shareholder, and he was connected to the company I work for outside of this, but he decided to sell his shares in the Celtics brand as the price for the team began to increase. He bought low and he sold high. It's something that you're going to see a lot
Business.
of the owners starting to do, especially with the new tax brackets that are coming into the NBA. And it's something that a lot of owners and managers are taking a lot of consideration into, and you're going to see a lot of more investment into these younger players as the NBA continues to grow, and how these players are starting to make more and more money. I mean, we see Jaylen Brown making, when he got his contract, he was one of the highest paid players in the NBA. And now we're going to start to see his number become the median for a all-star type player.
Which is just insane, because it really feels like just not that long ago we were talking about $20 million contracts, 25 to 30. Like,
Right.
the 30 was 30, 32. Like, when we gave Gordon Hayward a max, okay, let's go back to that here. When we gave Gordon Hayward the max, that was $32 million. And now that's just, it's like, oh, now this role player like Nick Claxton is making 27 million. I'm going, whoa, what's going on here? Like, you look at it initially and go, oh, that's a big number for that player. But then you have to look at it in relativity to every other player and go, oh, okay, the salary cap goes up, and really these players are in this market and this number, and now these players are in this market. And now it's really the best time ever to be an NBA player and to get paid because, like you said, these numbers are just, oof, they're astronomical. And of course, I like that story you gave out about the shareholder there. You're a direct victim, and you're direct knowledge.
The-
You have direct knowledge of the situation in terms of like, oh yeah, when somebody sells their shares of the team, you're no longer at half court. You're no longer in the picture. It's like, okay, you're going over here, you're getting pushed to the side a little bit. But I will say here, we're gonna do breakdown because should have done breakdown earlier before he came in, Franco, because there was a lot of time to do it. But
I had
hey,
to surprise you tonight.
saved it to the end. Okay, saved it to the end. I appreciate the surprise as well because I always like to have multiple people on this post
Of
game.
course.
Nobody likes to hear me yap for an entire hour on here anyway. But that does bring me to the breakdown segment tonight, which the Boston Celtics, tonight's breakdown segment is really going to hone in on the Celtics' early success at penetrating the paint, driving down low, and the opportunities opened up from that. And it's really going to put an emphasis on the Celtics doing this early in the ball game and setting the tone. So going to breakdown tonight, we show our first slide here. Now let me take down the banner, and I gotta remember to put it back up before we pop back on screen here. But first, we see Drew Holiday, and this is, I talked about Drew Holiday earlier, and really he set the tone for this game. And this is really what I was meaning by setting the tone: is the Celtics, as of late, they have not been good at driving the ball to the paint aggressively, penetrating the paint, attacking the paint, and really opening up opportunities for others. And Drew Holiday, he thrived off of this last season so often. And this season, we haven't seen it as much, where Drew Holiday is really going to the rim, driving to the rim, finishing at the hole. But right here, Drew Holiday, this is where the also I'll mention this about the Houston Rockets. Their defense was just not just not with it tonight. Jeff Green, who we thought might be out of the league a couple of years ago, you see him kind of in help side there. And this is where the Rockets were just miscommunicating on defense. Didn't have their best defensive players tonight. They were missing, of course, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith Jr. Three defensive minded players for the Houston Rockets, not in the lineup. Three just stout, lengthy defenders who changed the entire trajectory of the Houston Rockets. You see who's out on the court right now: Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, and Jeff Green, the surprise start tonight.
Yeah.
Former Celtic
Cool.
Jeff Green. Can you really believe Jeff Green
Oh,
is still out
Jeff
there?
Green in 2025. I thought that we were blessed to see him in 2013 when him and Jordan Crawford were lighting up the Celtics scoreboard when we had no one else to rely on.
But not to get too deep in this, but Jeff Green, it was amazing in 21 or 2019, I want to say. One of those 2 years when, I won't get too deep in this, but Jeff Green, it seemed like his time was over in the league, and then all of a sudden he's here 5 years later. I mean, it's just miraculous where a player's career can go. And this isn't a Udonis Haslam situation throwing strays out right now. He's actually playing out on the court. You see he's in help side right now. But Drew Holiday, this switch right here by the Houston Rockets, you see Şengün, he's on Hauser. Well, I should say Jalen Green and Şengün, they're trying to communicate this Hauser and Drew Holiday play right here, where Hauser, he kind of sets the screen here on Şengün, and he's going to go pop to the corner. And from that, Şengün and Jalen Green, they miscommunicate this switch right here. And you go to the next slide. Drew Holiday is just able to penetrate the paint hard. And this is, again, what made Drew Holiday so impactful for the Celtics last season is look at all of those eyes on Drew Holiday right now. Okay, he's going to finish over Jalen Green on this play and get a bucket. However, look at the eyes on Drew Holiday. So number one, you have Drew Holiday's finishing ability down low as a physical guard. You're getting easy buckets around the rim. But look at the opportunities opening up on the perimeter for the Boston Celtics. Fred VanVleet looking at Holiday. Jeff Green looking at Holiday. You look at Alperen Şengün. He's looking at Holiday. Jalen Green is obviously on Holiday. All of those players for the Houston Rockets staring right at Drew Holiday. That's why it's so impactful to drive and penetrate the paint, because you are collapsing the defense. You're drawing all of the attention down to the paint to open up those perimeter opportunities. And if you have the opportunity, like Drew Holiday has right here, to go out and finish that easy bucket, well, you're going to take the easy bucket. And if it's not there, if there's two guys down there, if everybody collapses, you're going to have a kick out to either Sam Hauser or Kristaps Porzingis right here, or even whoever else is out on the perimeter that we can't see on the shot right now. But this is why penetrating the paint is so important for the Boston Celtics. And you notice early on, this is 37 seconds into the game. So this is the first points of the game for the Boston Celtics. And this is what we really talk about, setting the tone. And Drew Holiday was doing that. And you'll see him a lot in this player breakdown, because going further, he's doing it again. He's doing it yet again. Right here, you see on help right here, Jalen Green, Sam Hauser's in the corner. Drew Holiday, he's going, look, Alperen Şengün, your footwork, phenomenal in the paint, but you're not as quick as me. You're not going to be as physical as me on this play. And Drew Holiday, this is really just it's awe-inspiring from Drew Holiday from this perspective, where we look at Drew Holiday as a little bit smaller of a guard, maybe not that small of a guard, but in terms of the height relative to Alperen Şengün, you think, oh, Alperen Şengün, the center, Drew Holiday, the guard. Alperen Şengün should have this covered down by the rim. Yet Drew Holiday, he has Alperen Şengün in a bad position, has the driving leverage right here. He's drawing Jalen Green over from Sam Hauser. So Jalen Green comes all the way over. He has a wide open corner three to Sam Hauser. And if not, he's going to have a one-on-one with Alperen Şengün, who he proves to be more physical than. Drew Holiday was taking him to the house, gave him a little bit of that bump, that turnaround, and just that jump hook, looking like Wilt Chamberlain right here, Drew Holiday is. And you just finished right over Alperen Şengün in a physical way, because he had that driving leverage and he has that physical leverage as well as a guard, despite Alperen Şengün really having the height leverage on Drew Holiday. He went down to the paint, and of course you see Jalen Green was sticking more on Sam Hauser there, so it was an easy decision for Drew Holiday to just go and make a move and finish over Alperen Şengün right here. That's the second play where Drew Holiday is just penetrating the paint and making something happen. Going even further here, look, now this is where we get Kornet and Tatum involved, and this is what Kornet was feeding off of all night, just sitting in that dunker spot. You notice Jason Tatum driving the paint aggressively here, has Jalen Green just completely off his defensive position. You have one guy down in the paint, Alperen Şengün on help. And who do you have there lurking in the dunker spot? Mr. Luke Kornet, who had 9 points, 10 rebounds tonight. And look at that. That's wide open for Luke Kornet, waiting there to receive the pass on the baseline. This is why the dunker spot can be so impactful. We've seen Drew Holiday really make an impact from this spot as well, but you really see it from the Celtics bigs as well, whether it's Luke Kornet, sometimes they have Porzingis down there, sometimes Kada as well, Al Horford. Maybe we should get him more opportunities. I know he's not the most agile, most versatile big at this point in time, but you can maybe get him some wide open opportunities down here. But Luke Kornet just forcefully taking it to the rim, grabbing a body, putting it on a poster. Luke Kornet finished this dunk. And you see from this opportunity, we'll go back to the next slide, just wide open under the rim. And he really had the leverage to just go and explode towards the rim. And you look from this too. If Kornet doesn't want to finish this, the help came over. Look who's wide open there on the wing. Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday.
Wide
Mr.
open.
60% last season.
Exactly. So that's where the Celtics just penetrating the paint, Tatum drawing everybody, drawing that help, and just dishing to Kornet there. And then Kornet, again, with the decision-making of whether to decide, am I going to finish this with a forceful dunk, or am I going to pass this out to Drew Holiday? Well, right here, he had enough time to go and put the Rockets on a poster. And
do we have the third part of that dunk?
No, we do not, unfortunately. No, trust me. We have some good slides here coming up though of Luke Kornet. Trust me. Don't get me wrong. Now this is only a one slide play, but you see here again Peyton Pritchard penetrating the paint, beating Fred VanVleet off the dribble. And this is again what just kind of made the Houston Rockets were just compromised defensively the whole night, because they were missing Amen Thompson, they were missing Tari Eason, they were missing Jabari Smith. When you're missing three wings like that, three forwards, defensively, it's going to be rough. It's going to be really rough for them for even the foreseeable future right now, depending on how long those players are out. Of course, Amen Thompson is suspended, so he won't be out too long. Tari Eason we'll see, and then unfortunately Jabari Smith probably a little bit longer. But right here, Peyton Pritchard penetrating the paint, drawing Şengün over because he knows, Look, Pritchard versus Van Vliet. This is barbecue chicken, okay? Fred Van Vliet. Think about all the players Peyton Pritchard's been scoring on this season. Fred Van Vliet is the same size, if not smaller, than Peyton Pritchard. And I love Fred Van Vliet, don't get me wrong, Wichita State alum. But at the same time, you know when Peyton Pritchard is driving aggressively to the paint like this, Fred Van Vliet, he's going to have a tough time actually going and stopping Peyton Pritchard from finishing at the hole or just making a move and coming up with a nice little jumper here. So Alperen Şengün, he helps towards the rim. And what does that open up? That opens up Drew Holiday on the wing / corner right there. And this was a wide open three for Drew Holiday because Alperen Şengün decided to stay home on Peyton Pritchard, who had the leverage against Fred Van Vliet, penetrating the paint, driving into the paint. You even look at the eyes. Look at the eyes again. You look at Dylan Brooks at the top of the key. He's not paying attention to Jason Tatum right now. Luke Cornett. You look at Jeff Green. He is not paying attention to Luke Cornett. Now they're both in good position on their players, of course. Brooks on Tatum and Jeff Green on Luke Cornett. But at the same time, look at where their eyes are. They're not focused on their defensive assignments. And this is where you can also just destroy a team from relocating, because if you're not the defensive, if the defensive player is not paying attention to their opponent, it's when you can get burned by relocation on the floor. This is where Tatum can relocate. We see it a lot with guys like Hauser, guys like Steph Curry, who can really move around the floor and shoot from the perimeter. But this is why penetrating the paint is so important. It really just draws the defensive attention just everywhere on the floor. And this was a one-play slide here, but Drew Holiday, this resulted in a wide open three in which he hit. Moving on, Tatum again, Alperen Şengün. This is a high screen from Drew Holiday at the top of the wing here, from really long way away. And Jeff Green, he's screened by Drew Holiday, and the Rockets are going to switch this. And you just see right now Tatum straight downhill attack on Alperen Şengün. This is another barbecue chicken moment right here, because Alperen Şengün, for as great as he is of an offensive player, sometimes defensively, maybe not always that great at defending the perimeter. His foot speed on the offensive end of the floor, great footwork there. But defensively, look at his defensive positioning here. Look at where his feet are pointed, towards the sideline. And Tatum, you see he's going with that left-handed cross across his body. He's going to the left and he's going to the paint. That's where Jason Tatum's going. He's going to the paint. And look what we have here again. Dylan Brooks comes up and helps because Jason Tatum, look, he's drawing everybody. Look at everybody's eyes. Dylan Brooks. Jeff Green is following Tatum right here. Alperen Şengün, Tatum blows completely by. Brooks comes on help. And, of course, Jalen Green's looking at Tatum. And I believe that's Fred Van Vliet over there. He's looking at Tatum as well. All five eyes on Jason Tatum right now. So who do you, of course, have? Luke Cornett sitting there again in the dunker spot. And from this, Luke Cornett has to make another decision. Am I going to dunk it, which it's going to be wide open here, or am I going to pass out to three because Drew Holiday is going to be wide open? If they collapse to him, it's either going to be Pritchard or White, and if Tatum relocates, it could be him as well. So here we go. A little bit better of a screenshot here. Another poster from Luke Cornett on this night. 9 points, 10 rebounds. Justin's Flowers again. Got to give out the praise to Luke Cornett. Another poster for Luke Cornett, and this was really his game, and he was just dominating and eating from that dunker spot, specifically early in this game. We'll see it again here later on in a second. But going further, Derek White. This is getting Keita involved. Derek White's penetrating the paint. Everybody's looking at Derek White, noticing, he's got a free lane right now. And if Şengün, he has to help on this yet again. And what happens? Şengün helps because Derek White penetrates the paint, blows by his assignment. And what do we have? Streaking down the lane, we have a wide open Keita who's just coming like a locomotive down the tracks, ready to dunk on the entire Houston Rockets team, and nobody can recover in time. Şengün's not going to recover in time to cover this physical force of Neemias Queta coming just with all of his speed, all of his momentum down the lane for a powerful, powerful dunk. And last screenshot here for play breakdown. I shouldn't say the last screenshot, but the last play. Again, Derek White penetrating the paint, penetrating the Rockets defense. Alperen Şengün has to come over to help. And look who is standing right there again in the dunker spot. Mr. Luke Cornett. He's going to finish this as well. We do not have another slide for him finishing this, but we do have a couple of slides for his reaction after this dunk. Luke Cornett. Justin's flowers. Well deserved tonight, Justin. Okay, got to give Justin praise here tonight for giving out his flowers to Luke Cornett, because Luke Cornett certainly deserved it. I think. I know I trashed on Justin's flowers last night. I got to apologize, Cato. Well deserved for Cato as well, but Luke Cornett, even better of a selection tonight. Luke Cornett celebrating here as well. Both of these images go back and forth. This was after that last dunk.
Frame by
And
frame, we got.
oh yeah, and we're gonna bring up the ticker so we don't mess up here. But Peyton Pritchard too got a nice little screenshot of him. He was on another one tonight, 8 of 10 from the floor, 20 points for Peyton Pritchard. And when you see this from Peyton Pritchard, it's night night. It's night night. You think, oh yeah, Steph Curry has that night night photo. When you see this from Peyton Pritchard, when you see that kiss from Jason Tatum, you see these 3 fingers from Peyton Pritchard. You got to prepare.
PG for ya.
Your team might be down 20. They might be down 20. So great night for the Boston Celtics. Great night for breakdown, really. And you saw just how impactful the Celtics were at penetrating the paint. That was really the main point of emphasis in that play breakdown, is the Celtics going downhill, opening up those opportunities both on the perimeter, and of course for Luke Cornett in that dunker spot, and even a couple of those we saw Drew Holiday just go in there and finish at the rim in a physical manner. And you really think about all of those plays, what it really leads down to is when you're penetrating the paint, you're opening up all of these options. That's what the Celtics and every NBA team wants to do on the offensive end of the floor. They want to just open up as many options as possible, as many scenarios for themselves to make the correct decision. That's also why decision making is so big in the NBA, is when you're going to create those options. That's what you want to do on offense. You got to be making the correct decisions. And the Celtics both created those options tonight and made the correct decisions. And that's why we saw such a substantial win tonight. But what do we got? What else do we got on here, Franco? Play breakdown. We have flowers. Anything else we want to talk about tonight? We talked about CBA for felt like 30 minutes just now.
Yeah, we got through the CBA, and we can just be happy that the Celtics were able to pull out a win against the Houston Rockets. We are very happy to be able to see a Houston. This was a game that almost felt like a trap game. I mean, no discredit to the Houston Rockets, the performances that they've been able to put on. They are one of the more in-depth teams that we've seen in the NBA, the more well-rounded teams, one of the teams that you'll be able to see have a great starting lineup and also have the bench pieces to be able to fill in. Obviously, they were a little bit short-handed with Jabari Smith, Thompson out of the lineup, and I think they were able to fill in perfectly. We were able to see them be able to line up against the Celtics very well. But this is a very hard West Coast road trip, and one thing that we can start to talk about is their next matchup, which is this Sunday at 3:30, and that is against the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is one of the, I believe, probably number 2 in the power rankings, if not number 1 right now, over the Cavaliers and the Celtics right now. And that's
We
going to
got
be
14-game winning streak, even though they lost to the Bucks in the final, the cup final in between there. That didn't count. Didn't count.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the hardest test the Celtics have seen so far this season. I mean, obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers have been playing at an astronomical rate, but this is a team that you don't really get to see too often, and other than our matchup that we'll have with them at home later on in the season, might be a matchup that we might see in May or June, and could be a NBA conference or a NBA Finals contender if the Celtics do make it that far. So obviously they're a little bit shorthanded. I believe that Jet is still dealing with that injury, and something that the Celtics should take note of. But if they are able to walk out of Oklahoma City with a win, that is a big statement for this team, especially after the month they had in December.
Oh, I completely agree. And this is really going to be the biggest test of the season for the Boston Celtics outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers games from earlier this year because if you look at the record of the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's well established. And really, though, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have not played a team like the Boston Celtics. So it will
Right.
equally be as big of a test for the OKC Thunder as it is for the Boston Celtics when the Celtics travel into Oklahoma City. And we all know the Celtics not the greatest of records in Oklahoma City, can sometimes struggle in front of that great Oklahoma crowd. And against this Thunder team last year, we saw a very thin margin, which the Celtics lost that game to the Thunder last year. And that was to start 2024. That was January 2nd, 2024. Celtics came out and lost that game to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we thought, yeah, not that bad of a loss. Oklahoma City is good. Celtics were rolling at the time, but this is a much different circumstance. The Oklahoma City Thunder, last year at this time, we were not looking at them necessarily as the number one seed in the Western Conference. They were up there in the standings, don't get me wrong, but they hadn't grabbed the number one seed yet at the end of the season like they did. They actually did it on the last day of the season. Could have been the Nuggets, could have been the Timberwolves. Thunder could have been the 3 seed, could have been looking at them a little bit different this season, but they grabbed the number one seed in the Western Conference. They come into this year, they're just running away with the number one seed, it feels like. They're really on par with the Cleveland Cavaliers in terms of being up for that number one seed. They're what, 5, 6 games? And we actually did them a favor tonight, beating the Rockets, of course. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, this is a dangerous team. This is a dangerous team. The Celtics have to look at and go, yeah, we might see them later on in the season. And it's not to say that this game is going to be so crucial in whatever happens later on in time, but you never know what can come out in these matchups that you can use later on in time that could potentially be used in a final series if it, of course, happens, because that is the most predicted finals matchup and the most likely finals matchup at this point in time to go on any sports book. It's the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics. And I really think every year, though, it's like we come in every season thinking, oh, it's going to be this matchup. Oh, it's going to be this matchup. And then we see something completely different every single year. And one team doesn't make it from either conference. And yeah, you could say the Oklahoma City Thunder. I will mention that. And you just said it. They are extremely young compared to the Boston Celtics. The Celtics, they are in their primes. The solid days of the primes of the Boston Celtics are here.
What's
And
the year?
yet,
The year 7 that people like to call the prime age?
I want to see if I can find this in my notes real quick because let me see here. I'm gonna find this in my notes because I thought I wrote it down last year. My phone will allow me to search for notes right now. Not gonna. Here we go. So Boston. Okay. Oh, here we go. The draft years. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Now this was last year's Celtics and Thunder team. Okay. This is what's interesting. What the conversation of age here. Again, last year's teams. Okay. Here are the draft years of OKC's roster. Okay, the draft years. I'm gonna just name them out. I won't name the players. 2023, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2021, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2018. So you have one player from 2023, 3 players from 2022, 2 players from 2021, one player from 2020, 1 player from 2019, and 2 players from 2018. This is mostly their rotations as well. I should say that to add in. Here are the Celtics. 2021, 2020, 2020, 2017, 2017, 2017, 2016, 2015, 2009, 2007, which everybody can guess who that 2007 is, Mr. Al Horford. But you just look at that and go, wow. Okay, so you have 2 players from the youngest player on the Boston Celtics. They're from in the rotation last year. Okay, we won't count. This is the rotations of these 2 teams, by the way, last year. So we're not counting some of the younger players who drafted in 2024, and of course, who are not in the rotation. But one of the youngest rotation players for the Boston Celtics is Sam Hauser, undrafted in 2021. Okay,
Oh,
for the Thunder, he would be, and again, this has changed a lot because like Josh Giddey is in here. It's like we're not counting Caruso.
No,
Technically, he'd be
yeah.
a 2017 guy, right? So you do have maybe some more age here for the Thunder this year. Of course, they're 1 year more experience. Say that right now, 2025 right now. But 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018 for the Thunder. And then for the Celtics, it's 21, 20, 17, 16, 15, 09, 07. So that paints the picture right there. I'll try to put it on screen here.
So I can technically call some of the Thunder star players kids.
Okay, so like you look at the years, right? Look at the
Right.
years.
Yeah,
Can't really see it that well, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, yeah, there we go.
So most of the Thunder's rotation might have graduated under us. I mean, you look at the
Correct.
NBA draft classes, and most of these players get drafted either in their freshman or sophomore year of college. Some of these players that we can call kids, and we're only 22 years old on this show. We haven't reached dunk status yet, fans. We aren't.
No, I'm gonna say this right now because I was saying this to my friend the other day. We're bums in the NBA now. They wouldn't take us.
Yeah.
They like 18-year-olds. They like 19-year-olds. They like guys who can develop. Think about some of the players who come into the league at 18, 19 years old. By the time they're 22, they've been in the league 4 years, maybe 5 years, depending on what year you came into. And right now it's like we're 22. We'd be a rookie. Like, oh yeah, we're bums. Like they wouldn't take us. They'd be, oh my goodness, 4-year college player. We're not taking you guys at all. It's amazing how quickly you become washed up on this earth. But there's levels to it. There's levels, okay? There's levels. There's certainly levels to being washed up. But with all that being said, the Boston Celtics do, of course, head into Oklahoma City to face the Thunder in their next game on this West Coast road trip, in which includes the Minnesota Timberwolves, who the Celtics beat last night, the Houston Rockets, who the Celtics beat tonight, and then the two biggest tests on the horizon, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets on the road. The Celtics, they're going to be tested in those road games, but tonight the Celtics passed the test, and even last night as well. The first two games of the West Coast road trip, 2-0 for the Boston Celtics so far. Tonight, the Boston Celtics come away with a 109-86 victory over the Houston Rockets, a much-needed win for the Boston Celtics to start regaining that consistency, that reputation, that identity that Jason Tatum was talking about the other night that we once knew of the Boston Celtics last season. But with all that being said, we will be here on Sunday night. We all know we don't know our days here.
Yeah,
we don't know our days.
If you're a
here.
Celtics Talk Weekly fan, you know we're all just jumbled up in the dates. We don't even know when.
It's Friday right now, right? Friday now. Okay, it's Friday.
Sure.
No idea which day it is. Sunday night,
no, it's
folks.
Saturday. It's Saturday for me over on the.
Oh no, Saturday I think for me as well.
Yep.
Central. I'm Central. Yep. So Rocky Mountain Pacific. You guys staying Friday there. It's still Friday over there. It's Saturday over here. But right now, this game was on Friday, of course. But on Sunday against the Oklahoma City Thunder, we're getting that date correctly. The Boston Celtics will be out on the court once again for one of their biggest tests of the season. And we, of course, here on the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show will have you covered right after the game for postgame live. Well, all I got to say here, Franco, is cue that music. Is this the music? Am I playing the wrong music right now?
No, this is my buddy's music that we're planning on debuting. Let it play.
Oh no, we're going back. Should we go back to the other one? Should we go back to the other one or this one?
No, we can. Why don't we let this debut it? If you want to debut it.
Let's debut it. We're already jumbled up here at the end. We're already jumbled up. This is the OG track. Here we go.
This is mixed by Carlito with 2 O's. If you want to find him on Instagram, he is nominated for a Bars Over Bars song of the year. Check him out on Instagram or anything.
Oh yeah. Quick promo before we get off this postgame show. Oh yeah. Feels good after a Celtics win. All right, folks. We'll see you guys Sunday. That's it for us. As I always say, go Celtics.
Oh yeah, it's not right.
Yeah.